I'm just wrapping up for the day and want to share with you something unique and interesting that might be useful to your business as a subscriber to Inside Strategic Relations. First off, I'm in the business of finding things of value. I'm going to show you some little diagrams I put together. I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. And basically what I do is I help solve complex problems and find things of value. So it could be a person of interest. It could be a situation or a particular solution. I've had clients in the past where we've tried to find a particular type of situation in real estate where they could invest and guarantee a profit. Now, we don't guarantee a profit because they invest. We guarantee a profit because the criteria for solution were so specialized that we could take data, sift and sort, and find the exact right opportunity. I've had clients in the past in business development where we sifted through 1.2 million contracts, federal government contracts, to find the exact situation where this client could implement its particular services to provide great value to those clients. And it really breaks down to something that I didn't realize that I saw differently. So this picture here is two concentric circles. Now, I'm going to explain what all this is in a quick little podcast, but these are two concentric circles, and they represent two topics of interest. It could be a broad topic and a narrow topic. Now, the dot in the middle is actually our target. So again, that target could be this solution to a problem. It could be a setup situation where you know that if you invest under these conditions, I worked with somebody, we talked about different financial conditions of stock. And if the stock met those conditions, it alerted a trigger and they could invest in that stock. Now, ultimately, the reds are hits and the blacks are misses. So the black circle is a miss, the red circle is hit. Now, you might be saying, well, if we missed our target, we want to focus again and get to the target. Well, guess what? With today's public information, social media, and all the platforms that are available, you don't actually need to know anything about your target in order to hit it. The red is a hit that leads us towards a positive behavior. So I'll give you this in the terms of marketing. We're trying to reach the customer that's specific in this little target, and we want to find some area of interest that helps us reach a target. We test two areas of interest. One area of interest leads to a purchase behavior, so that's our hit, and one doesn't. Now, of course, if you're statistically testing, there's going to be a variety of things. But let's say neither hits the target. We can actually go to a broader reach. So let's say this is an audience targeting on social media marketing, or it's an audience targeting on pay-per-click marketing. We can actually go to a wider frame, and we can do a target hit. So we test three things. One hits, the other misses. We can actually start building up representational profiles of this target customer and approach them by going from wider audience to more narrow audience. So let's say this is individuals who like to go camping, and this narrow circle is individuals who like to go camping in the Rockies. So we have and now the circles are hit as in makes a purchase, miss as in becomes a lead or visits a website. See, this model in your approach to finding the solution helps you organize information so that you can then zero in on that particular target. Now, in some cases, that target, in the marketing case, that target isn't one person. It might be an avatar for a person. But ultimately, what we're doing is you're starting from the outside going in or the inside going out, and you're narrowing down your focus through tests. And those tests are behaviorally related. Now, this is a broad topic to narrow topic. And by the way, you can go the other way around. What if you already know who the target is, you know who the customer is, and you know they have very specific interests, but when you do your test, some hit, some miss. The hit isn't enough detail to get you to your next target, so you can go broad. In this case, you're going from a narrow targeting feature to a broad targeting feature, and then you find that one fails, but some derivative of that. It's really a series of tests. Are you with me? Because I know this sounds confusing, and that's why I drew the fancy pictures to see if we can help you out. The next one. What do we have here? Looks like a solar system. No, it's actually two intersecting interests and tests along those intersections. So what we're testing here is, and these circles would start out clear, and you would turn them red or green. Green means a success, red means a failure. Hit or miss, red or whatever. Okay, so these are two overlapping interests. So the larger circle, let's say we've done this test and we want to narrow our focus more, and we were going to segment the list from people interested in camping in the West to people who are interested in camping in California and people who are interested in camping in Colorado. See, they both are interested in camping. There's overlapping interests. The climate is similar, so the warm climate could be the overlap. But now we're going to test something that is common to both spheres, and then something that is not common, meaning it has a centralist view on this one side versus the other. And then we're going to test two things. One is completely different, and one is completely different. Get it? Okay, so let's say these two tests come back successful. The target takes the behavior that's appropriate for those conditions. You could test them individually, you could test them as a group. That tells you something about the person there. Okay, now we're going to get into the practical use of this, but I want you to understand we're looking at spheres of influence. We talk about this in Inside Strategic Relations. Somebody who goes camping is going to be a customer for camping materials, camping trips, camping supplies, and if we can identify who they are and we can consistently find characteristics of their interest, then we can put a marketing message in front of them. Okay, now here's the interesting part here. This is the magic. Okay, last name, date of birth, and zip code. 87%. What does that mean, Justin? It's so mystical. Well, think about this. If you have somebody's last name, their date of birth, and their zip code, you have an 87% chance of identifying a unique individual. Now, what does that mean in context of the previous examples? Well, it doesn't take very many data points to uniquely find somebody. It could be just 3 data points. In fact, all you need is 3 data points to identify and find just about anybody on the planet. And it's sometimes you want to find a complete audience, like you want to find project managers interested in improving their skills in project management. Well, a data point might be what associations are they members of? Another data point might be what books have they purchased? Well, if they're a member of the Project Management Institute and they purchase books on project management, then they're highly probable, highly likely to be interested in a course on project management. Now, I know I'm giving you the simple examples. We'll go back to investing in a little bit, in business development in a little bit. But again, it's just 3 pieces of information. Now, any 3 pieces of information, this in particular can help you identify a unique individual, but this helps you discover PPI, which is personal private information. So people's behavioral interests, their desires, their political party. This was used very heavily in a campaign for political offices, but you can also find out PII, which is personal identifiable information. Now, in the privacy world, in the FTC and the different laws about privacy, you got to be careful with these 3 characteristics. You can't have them all stored in one place because that would uniquely identify somebody who might otherwise be hidden in a customer list, in a marketing list, or something to the such. But what about this PPI? What can this teach us? Well, if you can find 3 pieces of data, you can extract personal preferences, personal private information from the minds of your prospects and I'm not wringing my hands together like this. I was just relaxing my hands a little bit. It is scary though. Privacy is dead in America. In fact, even in this view here, there's enough information here to find out exactly where I'm located. This is a intelligence skill that you use in order to find your audience members. And the scary part should be is this is information people give freely in social media networks, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Google. Our behaviors on the internet uniquely identify us and categorize us in groups. So how do we use this? Well, first off, when I pulled a list of 1.2 million federal contracts, I pulled it from the government offices. There's a procurement office and you can just get the list. I drilled down on the list based on the characteristics that were most ideally suited for my client. So my client did IT services, they did administrative services, and they did office moving. So for each of those categories, I built out a 2 or 3 question profile that helped me identify those who could make a decision about hiring that type of service. Now, it took about 6 months to zero in on that, and we got down to about 1,200 contacts in the first couple of months. So the first month we developed the profile. The second month we mapped that profile to products and services and an approach. Now, we don't just wait 3 months to get started. We actually start testing our ideas and concepts in the marketplace. But in general, you first want to identify the characteristics, You want to identify the opportunity, and then you want to start drilling down and testing your assumptions. We tested assumptions by sending mailing lists, by me getting on the phone and calling people and asking questions, by having spontaneous interactions with the principal that I was working with and the target customers that we're working with. We also created a sales sheet and sent it out to procurement managers. We created a financial objectives page that we sent out to financial decision makers. So one of the deals that he could provide is he could help somebody lower their cost. He was an 8A hub zone business, and he was hiring individuals in categories that are often done by other people. So moving a data center, for example. Sometimes you got the software engineers in there. Sometimes you've got the IT people in there moving equipment. Well, what if you had professionals who could come in and box up the equipment, and then the equipment could be moved through a moving service? Well, that would significantly lower the cost. So we built out these scenarios, and we started putting them out in the marketplace. Now, today, by the way, this was like 10, 15 years ago. Today, it is so much easier. I could send somebody to a website and then track them with a cookie and then invite them back to the website. I could, oh, you didn't know about that, by the way. Every website you visit is actually tracking who you are, and they get that IP address, which is your connection to the outside world, which gives them a zip code. And then when you go to the website and you fill out an email, now they've got an email. Sometimes they'll ask you for your birth date. Sometimes they use your email to ask the social media platforms for your birth date. And then, of course, they get your name because that's what they asked for on the form. From there, they can get your real postal address, which they can then append to either financial demographic information, even some psychographic information, and then ultimately better target you as a customer. Now, I say target and I tell you privacy is dead. I'm not meaning to scare you. In fact, this is a very valuable resource if your company wants to save money on marketing while getting a better, more effective result from the campaigns that you put out. It also helps investors zero in on campaigns so they don't waste money along the way. So hedge funds, for example, they're going to invest in a niche profile that's going to work well for them. They've modeled it in advance, and they're not going to waste money throwing it up against the wall. A lot of retail investors simply just throw money against the wall. They throw it against an index. What if you could look at the characteristics of that index to identify target organizations that have certain behaviors that increase in value? So now you're looking, instead of concentric circles, you've identified the characteristics, the hits, and you've now start putting those hits on a timeline so that you can look at changes in behavior. So back to the marketing example, let's say a couple is trying to have a child and you're a fertility clinic, and you know this couple is having challenges because the time they started looking for information about having a child and the time that you have interacted with them is more than 9 months. Because if they were successful having a child, they would have had it earlier. And some of this can be really creepy, okay? So if you're going to ask somebody, they show up on your fertility site, you're a pharmaceutical company, you're a clinic, or maybe you help with reducing stress and health and nutrition so that someone can have a child. And you say to them, hey, look, a lot of folks that come to us have been looking for a while. How long have you been moving towards having a child naturally? Maybe you're a health store. And then someone says, well, it's been about 8 months with no success. Tell me the story. See, that kind of consultation not only is helpful for the person who's come to you, because you can start tailoring your information to their needs. This is not about manipulation. This is about providing better value to the prospect. And then ultimately, you can help them get a solution that's right for their objectives. Now, it doesn't really matter what you offer as a service or what they desire. What we're really doing here is we're creating a profile, testing assumptions, and then zeroing in using public data in order to find those individuals and serve their interests. But I do always have a warning. These types of strategies are being used today to manipulate your political decisions, to shape the media that you see or don't see, and to actually modify the world around you so that you can be manipulated by people with interests. And there's data analytics people supporting that. There's psychographic. So my bridge is risk management using both demographic and psychographic information as well as data science in order to zero in on specific individuals. That's why I look weird and have a weird looking office. But ultimately, my point being is that You can use this for good or evil. It is just a tool. Small businesses use it to find target customers. Large businesses use it to find customers. Political parties use it to buy votes. And in fact, in the Obama campaign, there was very much a lot of creativity, and there was a lot of direct niche targeting that was then picked up by Donald Trump campaign, President Trump's campaign, President Obama's campaign. And then also there were cases where Cambridge Analytica, for example, was using the information for nefarious purposes. But ultimately, a voters list can be segmented down into Democrats or Republicans or independents as well. And now you can go in and find that 5% you need to shift in order to get the majority vote. This is another reason why democracy is not really a good idea, because you can manipulate crowds. Crowds have certain crowd behavior. So if this target is a single individual, it's a little bit different targeting than if it's a group of individuals. See, the groups of individuals will telegraph their interest in a broader brush. They're interested in camping, and individuals are interested in camping in the West. Somebody who's making a buying decision is interested in camping in California. You don't want to pick up homeless people that are trying to get better camping equipment for their life in San Francisco. You want to get someone who is recreationally camping that's going to buy equipment to go do something. See how we narrow the focus. Now, you can use the 5 why method. We talk about a lot of different things on how you can do that. But remember, this is a broad interest to a narrow interest, or a narrow interest to a broad, testing different assumptions with the behavior of the targeted individual. And I'm going to wrap up, by the way, with the investing example. This here is interests that overlap, and they could be embedded within the concentrics, or they can be independent. It could be somebody who is a libertarian who is donated to a libertarian cause. So if you're trying to build your donor database, you want an individual who's already donated. They already... You don't want to say, well, they have some interest already. No, they already donate. They're more likely to take some kind of action. Would probably make a better voter than to switch to another support group or group that they want to support. But these are, again, we're testing the overlap. We're testing the interest tailored to one side. We're testing interests that are completely different. And through those test routines, we know something about that target or that individual. And then we must remember that this information is dangerous. So once you start collecting profiles of individuals, there are federal, state, and international laws related to the privacy of individuals, because all you really need is the last name, date of birth, and a zip code to uniquely identify 87% of people. In fact, if you had a customer list that was made anonymous, so they didn't have any usernames, but they had made a mistake of keeping the last names, or even coding the last names in a hash, for example, and you undo the hash, or a date of birth, and they have just the birth year. Well, it reduces the accuracy, but you can still use it. In a zip code, you could actually use the zip code to identify their common demographics, the high probability of their racial makeup, financial makeup, and other characteristics of that individual. You could use the year to categorize them in a generational group. And so if they tend to be older in a zip code that's primarily affluent, then they're likely retirees. So you can telegraph. Now, what do you do? Okay, well, look at this. That would be overlapping interests. Zip code, affluent. You see how that works? Now, what you would test is their interest in your offer based on those elements, or some other element that goes deeper, like a lead generation campaign that goes deeper. Let me wrap up with the investment strategy. So one of the things that I've done in the past is there are different trends, like is a stock overbought or underbought. There's certain trends about free net cash flow in the company. So when they put out their SEC filings, you can scrub those or pull those statements and then scrub through them for free net cash flow, acquisition of assets. You can add 3 to 5 different criteria, which you could ask about those stocks as part of a screening to do a weighted matrix. But essentially what you would do is you'd feed the data to a model. And a very simple model can get you started, by the way. You don't need machine learning or artificial intelligence if you're just setting up a basic model that helps identify priority so that you can test whether the priority is worth the investment. But in the case of an investment, you may want to be looking at the behavior of an index to find the top 20% players and the bottom 20% players. The top 20% of players, you might take options a certain way. And again, I don't want to make this investing advice. The bottom, you might take options a different way. But ultimately, it is the use of data to identify characteristics that match your targets. Once you've identified your target, you test it with a behavior. So you can ask your target to do something. Click on a link to open a page. In the case of the stock market stuff, you're not really asking the market to do anything. You might be, with the options, you can actually ask the market to do things. But ultimately, you're going to get a affirmative or you're going to get a hit or a miss. And then your hit and a miss, you can apply your artificial intelligence to have a better job of learning how to predict. But in what you've got in the model there, you can actually have some really good hits. The company I was working with that narrowed down the 1.2 million to 1,200, they had about maybe 100 really solid meetings out of that would not have been gotten in many years. So we took them in 6 months to $400,000 a year to $1.8 million in funds received, a $7 million backlog. But within 2 years, they were at $22 million in gross revenue. Now, the margins were really tight. This was a business that struggled for 10 years, but they had the right characteristics that I was looking for. They were an 8A hub zone business with an active owner and at least 2 successful contracts. I used the same criteria to find the customer and then the same model to then help the customer get a huge backlog of contracts. Now, in the government contracting world, a backlog of contracts is good because it sets up partnerships because you basically got money in the bank. We paraded around the banks and we got them funding and lines of credit, and it was a great thing going on. In the investment world, the investors were able to take us the proxy model that we had built out and researched, and with the successful tests, they were able to build scripts that literally just took the data feeds and then popped up on their screen hot prop producers, buy sell signals. And then from those signals, they could make decisions. And they later went on to refine the machine learning that was involved in that. And then in other cases, I've actually been on the other side. How do we protect the customer's privacy? Because we don't want our customers showing up in the outside world as competitive intelligence for somebody else. Think about it. You release a survey or a report and it identifies a bunch of customer characteristics, and your competitor reverse engineers that to find the customers around your branches and then goes ahead and gathers up all your customers because you weren't paying attention. So that's when we talk about these elements. Anyway, I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations, and this is an approach to look at how you target individuals. How do you find a needle in a haystack? And that's one of the unique things that I've been doing for years. I do it. I find risks. I find investment opportunities. I find people. I find all kinds of cool stuff using public information. And very often we can shift from a model to very strategic approaches. And it is beautiful for you. It is beautiful for me. And it's something I really enjoy. Again, I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations. If you have any questions about what I've shared here, you can reach me at www.insidestrategicrelations.com. I'll be happy to answer your questions. I'm here to help affluent professionals, entrepreneurs, and organizations who want to increase their profits using business relationships. And this is a very ethical model that I implore. If you're trying to do anything illegal, because all this stuff works for stealing credit cards too, but if you try to do anything illegal, I will report your ass because it really is about how do we serve our customers better. That mutually beneficial relationship is the real value in this because it funds continuing to do what you do. Anyway, thanks for listening.